All right, so this is a quick review for what we're doing today, not really what this is titled here. So if we consider that you have any two coordinate points, a little bit of review for coordinate geometry, similar to the maintaining mathematical skills, also good for ACT. So what we already know how to do is we've already talked about how to find slope. Okay, so if we have 2 points, we know how to find slope. What we're going to focus on is finding distance and midpoints, or utilizing midpoints. So this would be a geometry topic we're trying to review. So first of all, before we talk about distance, agree with me that normally this is your rise, and this is your run, and you find that by subtracting, right? So taking that y2 minus y1. Pythagorean theorem is really what's utilized in developing the distance formula. So the distance formula is basically Pythagorean theorem. It's just that instead of saying A and B and C, they're using those coordinates. My second x coordinate minus my first x coordinate, to square that. Plus my second y coordinate minus my first y coordinate, and square that. And then square root. That's all it really is. And so if you are visual or you'd like to kind of plot it out or can make that connection, that's what I was hoping to do here. So if you were going to plot this out, and you're going to have 2, 5 here, and you're going to have negative 4, 7, I believe, right there. We could, in turn, actually create a little right triangle here and use Pythagorean theorem to figure out that hypotenuse length. Or we can use the formula. I'm just going to utilize the formula. That's what John Baylor would tell us to do. So the distance is equal to the square root of my second x value minus my first x value squared plus my second y value minus my first y value squared. From here, we just have to calculate it. It's a negative 6 squared and a 2 squared. Make sure you know how to use your calculator, because negative 6 squared is actually a positive 36. So I'm down all the way having the square root of 40. And in geometry class, you would have simplified that to say that's the square root of 4 times the square root of 10. Or what we could also say is that's really the exact same thing as about 3 point, well, I grab a calculator. Round it to the nearest tenth, that's what your quiz is going to have you do. 6.3. Okay, so go ahead and do this one. Ultimately, I'm coming up with a square root of 65. Which doesn't really simplify. It's about 8.1, I do believe. Questions on any of that? I hope you guys kind of got that, right? Because horizontally, that was really a distance of 7 squared. Vertically, that was a distance of 4 squared. So 49. Plus 16 is where I got the square root of 65. All right, so distance, we can do this, okay, whether you're just doing Pythagorean theorem and you recognize that or elsewise. Midpoint, basically midpoint is like all of a sudden we stop subtracting. Yes, okay, so midpoint is realistically you are averaging, right? You find the middle, you're finding the average of the two values at a time. So if I was doing this first one, I'm going to average the x's. So it means I'm going to add them up and divide by 2. 7 plus 5 is 12, right? Divide by 2, which is really 6. Then look at my y's, and I'm saying, oh, that's a negative 4 plus 0 divided by 2. Right? So that's negative 4 divided by 2, which is just a negative 2. And therefore, my answer, midpoint right in between those, which should make sense, is a 6, negative 2. If you're a visual person, plot the points, fold the paper so the points line up, and you're going to have the midpoint. Okay? So do this one very much the same. Yes, it's okay not to have whole values. Right, add those up. -1 divided by 2. Add them up, 9 divided by 2. This is what we're looking for midpoints. Now, your quizzes also ask you some questions where they tell you the endpoint and they tell you the midpoint. And honestly, the way that I think about this is I go back to the idea of slope. And I think to myself, if to get from this point to this point, I added, what was that, 3.5? I added 3.5. To get from the middle to the other endpoint, I'd have to add the 3.5 again. So this value for Q should have an x coordinate of 2. If I look at the y, I subtracted 1.5. So if I'm going from the middle to here, I have to subtract 1.5 again. And I'm going to end up at a 4. That's how I think about doing the endpoint, is I just use slope and I repeat it as if it was a pattern. Otherwise, you could definitely use the coordinates where they say, oh, -5 plus something divided by 2 was equal to -1.5. Multiply both sides of the equation by 2, and then add that over. Okay, this also works. All right, that was how I was doing the one in purple, but up to you if you want to use the formulas or if you want to find a way in a concept that you understand better. But you have a quiz is to do. Utilize